Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 9:30 p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta, and Friday night, October the 15th. I'm happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights. Abuse prevention is up to us. 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into my shows. I really appreciate it. I want to talk about tonight an article from the WHO, a World Health Organization, called Violence Against Women. And, not yesterday, but Wednesday night, I was covering the WHO's article, the World Health article on World Health Organization article on child maltreatment. So now there's another one on violence against women. I want to bring this up because it's sort of want to talk about that as well as some of the issues surrounding domestic violence, since this is October's the Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the States. So I just thought it'd be kind of appropriate to talk about that tonight. This is an interesting article from the WHO, the World Health Organization, that sort of takes a look at it around the world instead of just like North America. A lot of the websites that we see, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence and whatnot, is mainly talking about the issues that are, based in North America, right? So I think that it'd be good to sort of take a look at some of the information as far as worldwide stats go, because these guys collect information on a worldwide, level. So, thanks for tuning in. I have the chat room open if you'd like to sit in there and hang out for the half hour. I'm not a professional counselor or therapist. I don't hold any certificates in those areas. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own blog talk shows, and I just wanted to be one more voice speaking out against abuse and standing up and saying, abuse is wrong. It doesn't matter who it's against, men, women, children, doesn't matter. I'm really all about human rights. And, children have rights, women have rights, men have rights. We all have human rights. And we have to stand up for them or we'll lose them. And it's very important that people know this. We have to do what we can, right, to make this world a better place. And, sort of be accountable for our own behaviors as well as, making sure that we help people if we can, right, who are suffering in these types of situations, especially children. We have to be a voice for the children. They don't have a voice if we don't raise ours, right? And so many people suffer, in every kind of situation in every country around the world. So it's very sad, and I come from that. I grew up in a domestic violence and abuse situation. My parents were both very violent people, and they were abusive towards each other, and so I'm a secondhand victim of domestic violence, right? So I know what it's all about from that perspective, and lived my whole life with people like that, and even some of my friends were like that. So it's horrible, and we have to make sure that we stop the cycle of violence against anyone, against everyone, right? So I like this article, and I want to talk about this. I'll pop this into the chat room, so if anybody wants to take a look at it, you'll have the link there. And it's an older article, but it doesn't matter. The information is very helpful, I think, to take a look at it. And there's more up-to-date stats than this, but I just happened to find this article the other day, and I thought, why not? We'll talk about it and just take a look at what they had to say. So you have to listen at your own discretion to all my shows. I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a very sensitive topic, right? All of my shows deal with the topic of abuse, and you have to know what's good for you to listen to. So, make sure that you're listening at your own discretion and you're safe enough and feel comfortable enough to listen. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I ask that you have a parent or, a guardian, somebody who's an adult, who's older, who can help you decide whether you should be listening or not. There's a lot of adult content on my shows, and I just think that young people should be protected at all times, right? And I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and that's what we do. We're fighting to save children's lives by promoting education and awareness regarding child abuse and everything, surrounding child abuse, and really trying to protect children and save children's lives. So it's very important that you keep yourself safe, and parents out there, keep your children safe and yourself safe by learning how to protect your children when they're online. It's just so important. So we'll get right into this article. This is from the WHO, www.who.int/media center, CENTRE/fact sheets, and you can find it, Violence Against Women. So key facts. They said violence against women is a major public health problem and a violation of human rights. Lack of access to education and opportunity and low social status in communities are linked to violence against women. Violence by an intimate partner is one of the most common forms of violence against women. And a wide range of physical, mental, sexual, and reproductive and mental health problems can result from violence against women. And many women do not seek help or report violence when it occurs, and that's a fact. Many people, even men don't report abuse when they're being abused by their partner. Whether it's a woman or a same-sex partner, doesn't matter. Men are abused too, and quite often don't report the abuse. So many times they don't out of fear, or they love that person and they love their partner. That's why they're with them, and they don't. They kind of hang on to this whole idea that they'll change or things will get better or this is just my life, but I love this person, and it's that whole I don't know. It's just that whole bond thing, Even though these people are being abused, that they would not go out, would not seek help. And, so many times, so many people are threatened if they go try to get help, right? Their lives are threatened, and possibly their family members or, the children in the home, pets, the abusive or abusing person in the home would threaten the other person and say, well, if you leave me, I'll kill the children or I'll kill the pets or whatever. So a lot of times it's under just duress of further violence and they're losing their lives or their families' lives that people stay. But it's all about control. And it's absolutely pathetic. But it's happening today. It's just like caveman days. May as well be back, 10,000 BC or whatever. It's absolutely ridiculous. It says the United Nations defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public or in private life. See, women have rights too, whether anybody wants to believe it or not. We all have rights, the human rights. People died for the human rights that we have today. I hope everybody knows that. Lots and lots of people have lost their lives for us so we could be free today. And so many people have put their reputations on the line. They've put their careers on the line. They've put their whole lives on hold to secure these rights, and many people have died doing it. And, we have to stand up for these rights. And we have to take a hold of them and grasp them. They are very real, and we do have rights. And if we don't protect those rights, they'll be taken away. So there are many forms of violence against women, including sexual, physical, or emotional abuse by an intimate partner, physical or sexual abuse by family members or others, sexual harassment and abuse by authority figures such as teachers, police officers, or employers, trafficking for forced labor or sex, and such traditional practices as forced or child marriages, dowry-related violence and honor killings when women are murdered in the name of family honor. Systematic sexual abuse in conflict situations is another form of violence against women. It's absolutely horrific what is going on. This has been going on since time began, but the thing is, it's 2010. Let's wake up and smell the coffee. This should not still be happening. There shouldn't be that many ignorant, sick people on the planet. How are all these sick people, individuals who are abusers and murderers, going around getting away with what they're getting away with in 2010? Is this not it should be a wake-up call? There should be alarm bells going off saying, hello, this is 2010. Now, there's a direct difference between 2010 and, let's say, 1100 AD. Let's get a grip here and get a clue and get some of this changed. This is ridiculous. No woman should be suffering. No person. I don't care. I'm not gender biased, right? I'm out here to protect everybody and to talk about protecting everybody, right? So men, shouldn't be being abused either, and neither should children. It's absolutely ridiculous what is going on. So they said scope of the problem. In a 10-country study on women's health and domestic violence conducted by WHO, the World Health Organization, between 15% and 71% of women reported physical or sexual violence by a husband or partner. Many women said that their first sexual experience was not consensual, 24% in rural Peru, 28% in Tanzania, 30% in rural Bangladesh, and 40% in South Africa. So their first sexual experience was not consensual. Between 4% and 12% of women reported being physically abused during pregnancy. Yeah, that's really sad, but it does happen. And so many women are sexually abused in every way, and girls and boys, and it's just not even funny. It says every year about 5,000 women are murdered by family members in the name of honor. Those honor killings each year worldwide. So about 5,000 women are murdered by family members in the name of honor killings each year worldwide. Trafficking of women and girls for forced labor and sex is widespread and often affects the most vulnerable. Well, of course it does. That's how they get a hold of these people. Anybody who's vulnerable, that's who they look for. Forced marriages and child marriages violate the human rights of women and girls, yet they are widely practiced in many countries in Asia, the Middle East, and sub-Saharan Africa. Just very ignorant, backward people, right? Worldwide, up to 1 in 5 women and 1 in 10 men report experiencing sexual abuse as children. And, that's worldwide. 1 in 5 women, 1 in 10 men report experiencing sexual abuse as children. That's only the ones that will actually, that they meet, that they actually get information from. And, for those who would disclose it, a lot of people won't disclose that they were abused as children or even abused sexually as children for sure. Quite often somebody will disclose they've been physically abused or verbally abused, but they would not disclose that they were sexually abused because of the shame that surrounds it. And, in the United States, they've figured that the stats, just if you look on any website out there coming from, like the National Clearinghouse on Domestic Violence and Child Abuse and whatnot, and any other, organization that actually collects stats, it's 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 to 7 boys in the United States will be sexually abused under the age of 18, whether it's unwanted sexual touching, molestation, exploitation, rape, you name it. So in the world, 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 or 7 boys in the States, but the world is like 1 in 5 women, 1 in 10 men. I think it's probably higher than that, but how many people do they actually reach that will actually fill out a report, first of all, and admit that they were sexually abused as children? Children subjected to, I bet you it's a lot higher than that. That's what I'm saying. Children subjected to sexual abuse are much more likely to encounter other forms of abuse later in life. Well, it's true because they're already at risk. You take a child who's being abused at home, especially sexually abused, it puts them at risk for further victimization down the road. And it's a real serious thing for survivors of child abuse of any type that they don't become re-victimized because they may have not worked through some of their issues and don't know where the boundaries lie and don't know that abuse is wrong. And so many times people, if they grow up with abuse, just think that that's life and that's their life and are abused as adults as well. And so in every situation, whether it's exploitation or, the sex trafficking industry or, just being on the streets and hooking for drugs. And that's really sad to see lots and lots of that in my city where I live and, right on my street, actually. And it's really sad, it's very sad because you just wonder what's happened in these people's lives that would put them there. And some of them are there because they want to be, and they always say that they never want to be. But I don't know that some of them that there's no excuse for them to be there. They probably have some of them probably have loving homes and people that do care about them. They're just on the streets because they're hooked on a heavy drug that will not let go of them. Or maybe they like that. Some people, sadly enough, are twisted and need psychological help. And actually like that lifestyle, that dangerous lifestyle. And that's a problem because they don't, I think it's just that, they just need psychological help. They need therapy and counseling and they need to be, shown that lifestyle is bad, right? But so many people, things happen to them and they can't see any other way, So many times, women will stay in these abusive marriages because they just can't see any other way. My mom was one who was just exactly like that. My mother was had every opportunity to leave. It's not like my dad had a gun to her head saying, "If you leave me, I'll kill you." She could have left at any time, and even when the courts intervened and threatened to take the kids away, she could have actually left at that point and let the courts take the kids, and she could have gone, or she could have just tried to raise us on her own. But she was very abusive herself, so that wouldn't have been a good idea. But she could have got out of the home, and so many times women will not. They will stay in a horrible situation because they don't know anything else. My mom was abused as a child, and she grew up like that, then went into an abusive marriage and didn't know anything else. She really didn't. And even on her deathbed, she said, it was a horrible life, and she didn't know anything else, right? It's horrible that somebody would think that they have to live their whole life like that, right? And that's bad, but so many times it happens, right? Health effects. This is health consequences can result directly from violent acts or from the long-term effects of violence. So they list off a bunch of stuff here: injuries, death, sexual and reproductive health, risky behaviors, mental health, physical health, right? So injuries, physical and sexual abuse by a partner is closely associated with injuries. Violence by an intimate partner is the leading cause of non-fatal injuries to women in the United States of America. So that's ridiculous. People attacking each other and raping their partners, and they call it, they don't call it rape, marital rape or whatever, right? Whole issue is it's flat out rape if it's not consensual. So, there's no other word for it. If it's not consensual, then it's rape. And so many times people in relationships are raped by their partner. And it's pathetic. It's violence. It's about control. It's not about sex. And it's sad because they are injured quite often. And, that's not right. It's not right for anybody to force themselves on anybody. And then you think of these sick perverts doing that to children, and that's when you want to start getting mad, you know what I mean? Because nobody should be thinking of a child in any kind of a sexual manner, period. You know what I mean? But there's so many sick people out there. And, think of how many children are sexually abused. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys, are sexually abused under the age of 18. So how many abusers are out there? These are parents doing this to their children, believe it or not, or caregivers, someone's boyfriend, someone's girlfriend. Women are sexual abusers too. I hope everybody will know, get the education, and realize that there's a lot of school teachers out there who are sexual abusers, and just start looking around for the information. Their pictures and their information's all over the web, and you can find it. Anybody can find it. And so you have to be very careful. And it's not just men who sexually abuse children. Lots of women do too. And lots of women get away with it because they're school teachers. They're looked up to. Nobody believes that when the child tells their parents, that something happened between them and their teacher, they'd be like, what, so-and-so? Oh, she's a great teacher. No way. So, they get away with a lot of stuff. And sometimes they get busted and you see them on TV. It's great. But they all need to be busted, right? But you need to know that it's not just men who abuse, right? And so many times there was that whole stigma surrounding the fact that it's always just men and it's always men's fault. Men are the only abusers. It's not true, it never has been true. There's always been, anyone can be an abuser. And my grandmother was my mom's abuser. My grandmother also was abused her own husband, right? And all the children in the home. She was a horrible woman. I don't know where she came from, but my God, she was horrible. And my mom, of course, just took that on and abused us, as well as my parents abused each other. So it wasn't just my dad abusing my mom. My mom was very violent towards my dad as well. And they used to viciously just beat on each other and, hit each other with really heavy objects and break lamps over each other's heads and stuff. And just crazy stuff, like really violent people. And so it's not just men who abuse, right? And I hope everybody realizes that. Sexual deaths. Here we go. Deaths from violence against women include honor killings by families for cultural reasons, suicide, female infanticide. Can't say that word. I don't know. I just don't know how to pronounce it. But it's where mothers murder their infant babies, right, or infant girls, or a parent murders an infant girl. Female infanticide, maternal death from unsafe abortion, and that's sad, right? People having these illegal abortions or abortions that are not done by, in a clinic by a licensed doctor who knows what they're doing. So sad. And this has been going on since time began. My God, and it's terrible. It's 2010. People need to straighten up. Honor killings, quite often it will be not even just the husband, but it will be like the mother-in-law who will want the other, the woman killed. And so sometimes people think, oh, how could those husbands do that to their wives? But actually sometimes it's the mother-in-law. So women are very murderous as well. Women can murder just as well as a man can. Women murder their children quite often. All you have to do is look around at the articles out there that are in the headlines. Women kill their children just as well as men do. And So, but this article kind of just talks about violence against women, right? Risky behaviors. Sexual abuse as a child is associated with higher rates of sexual risk taking, such as first sex at an early age, multiple partners, unprotected sex, substance use, and additional victimization. Each of these behaviors increases risks of health problems. Of course it does. And it's really horrible that somebody would experience that. So, quite often you go one way or the other, depending on just how violent the situation was, how early, at what age they were abused sexually, for how long, sort of thing, right? And sometimes, like I witnessed my dad, I actually witnessed my dad rape my mom, so I didn't want to have anything to do with sex, right? And then I was molested by my brother, so sexually abused by my brother, and so I didn't want anything to do with sex or anybody touching me. And so I went the other way, completely shut down. Whereas some people will actually go the opposite way, and they'll just have sex with everybody, and they want, the more sexual, relations they can have, the more they will. And so it just depends on the situation, right? But either way, it's really bad, right? Because it causes a lot of problems. So sexual abuse against anyone is so wrong. And if your child comes to you and tells you that somebody's touching them in a funny place or in a funny way, or someone's making them watch something on TV that they don't want to watch, or, things like this, you better keep an open ear and an open eye and know the signs and symptoms of child sexual abuse, and then make sure you do something about it and don't allow your child to suffer at the hands of somebody who's just using them for sexual purposes, right? Make sure you do get your children some help, and make sure that they don't be abused. You watch out for them and protect your children, right? Mental health. This is violence and abuse increase risk of depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, sleep difficulties, eating disorders, and emotional distress. Well, of course it does. And it's violence is hard on people, and people watch a lot of violence on TV, but it's just the TV. And little kids and stuff, they can be affected by that because what they see on TV, they'll mimic. They just mimic everything. I mean, if you put a child in a room and the only thing in there is a cat, and there's no other outside influences, that child will mimic that cat. They will mimic whatever is around them. It's just the way that they learn. So, if they learn violence at an early age, well, it's not a good idea. So you got to watch what your children are looking at. Make sure that they're not watching a lot of violent programs. And violence in the home. If you're violent or your partner's violent, they're going to mimic that, guaranteed, or they'll just shut down, one or the other. It does cause a lot of problems with depression, PTSD, sleep difficulties, eating difficulties, emotional stress, mental problems. Physical health. Abuse can result in many health problems, including headaches, back pain, abdominal pain, fibromyalgia, gastrointestinal disorders, limited mobility, and poor overall health. Well, of course, abuse is hard on your body. It's hard on your mind. It's hard on your body, right? It's hard on everything. It's just hard on a person. And so, it's really important for people to know if they are in an abusive relationship, make sure you get some help. And if your children are being abused, you have to do the right thing and get them to safety. You have to do the right thing and get them some help, They're counting on you. And, you have to keep yourself safe and your children safe, right? So if you're in that situation, make sure that you get some help. And I have a good friend in the chat room. Hello, Gypsy Witch. And this is great. Gypsy Witch has been here with me all night. She was over at Dreamcatchers Talk Radio as well as on my show now. And she's my good friend from Australia. And really like a sister to me. And thanks for being here, Gypsy Witch. I just love you. And this is really quite sad. That so many people are abused and yet they don't report it. They won't go get help. So social and economic costs. The social and economic costs of violence against women are enormous and have ripple effects throughout society. Women may suffer isolation, inability to work, loss of wages, lack of participation in regular activities, and limited ability to care for themselves and their children. And it just breaks them down is what it does. Abuse just breaks people down. So whoever is being abused, whether it's the child, the man, or the husband, or the wife or the woman, it'll break them down in every way. So this is who is at risk. It says, though risk factors vary, some characteristics seem to increase the likelihood of violence. The potential risk factors can be grouped into the following subsets, and they say individual, family relationship, community, societal. And individuals' personal attributes associated with higher risk of violence include limited education, a young age, lower socioeconomic status, limited education, they already said that one, a history of abuse and substance abuse, and for partner violence, the choice of partner traits put women at risk, including women at risk is alcohol, drug use, right? So you don't want to marry somebody who's just boozer and who's just drinking all the time and using drugs and who doesn't have any education and is very ignorant. Low educational level, negative attitudes about women, and witnessing domestic violence against women or being abused as a child. So, people quite often just go with what they know. Sometimes, people who have just been abused, they go from being abused as a child right into another abusive relationship, which a lot of people do that. And it's very, very sad because they just never get away from it. It's just a steady barrage of abuse, whether it was when they were children or as adults, right? And it's not good. We have to know that abuse is wrong in every way and get some help, right? Family and relationship. It says within families, risk of violence increases with marital conflicts, male dominance, economic stress, and poor family functioning. And so, of course it does. There's always a risk of violence when there's marital conflicts and people don't know how to communicate, right? There's no communication, especially if there's male dominance or even female dominance. But we're talking about women here tonight. But I know firsthand what it's like to witness a woman run the roost, and that was my sister actually did that to her husband and practically killed him. And we all thought that she would kill him. Actually, I'm surprised that she didn't. But anyway, she ended up dying of cancer. But she was the one who was the dominant figure and very violent. And so I've seen this both ways, right? Men and women doing this. So I know that, but this article just happens to pertain to women. So, but it says community. Within communities, the risk is higher where there is gender inequality and a lack of community cohesion or resources. And that's right. Like within communities, if everyone just feels that women are not equal with men, then of course there's going to be a lack of help and resources for them, right? Because if it's the general consensus that the women should just tolerate whatever abuse comes their way in the whole community, then there won't be anything done. And that's why we all have to stand up and raise our voices. All it takes is one person to stand up and say, abuse is wrong, and pretty soon you get somebody else saying, that's right, abuse is wrong, and then you got two voices. And let me tell you what, our voices are very powerful, and we do make a difference, and we do matter, and we do count. So raise your voice and get serious about it. You see somebody abusing somebody, you don't stand by it and tolerate it. You do something about it. And it doesn't mean you have to take it into your own hands, but report it. And if you know of a coworker who's being abused or a friend or something and they're in a domestic violence situation, you make sure that you tell them, I'm here for you. And you need to get a safety plan and you need to get yourself to safety, right? We need to reach out to people. We need to make sure that they have the information on how to keep themselves safe, right? Societal, it says, on a broader level, high risk is found in societies with traditional gender norms or a lack of autonomy for women, and where there are restrictive laws on divorce and ownership and inheritance of property, or when there is social breakdown due to conflicts or disasters. So, it just affects on every level. There's just, violence against women is just so huge. So this article, we're just about almost finished it there, but it's a great article. You can get it at www.who.int, and it's called, I'll give you the title again, Violence Against Women, the World Health Organization. So I hope you will check it out. It's under their Media Center information, programs and projects, right? So make sure you check that out. It's really worth looking at. And all their stuff on their website is just awesome. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you are in a domestic violence situation, call a domestic violence hotline. Get a safety plan. Go on to the different websites that are out there, like the NCDA, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the NCADV.org, or www.domesticviolence.org, and you can get it personally. You can get a safety plan and learn, how to get yourself to safety. There's all kinds of things you need to do to get yourself to safety, right? And if you have a plan, you'll just be so much more better prepared to do that. If your life is being threatened, to get out now. You call 911, call a friend, I don't care. If you are suffering in this situation, make sure that you reach out and call somebody. Call a crisis line, call somebody, right? Have a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you real soon. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.